Every time you see a dead manatee, every time you see impaired waters, this is a true sign of our government failing us.
Florida is in a full-on environmental crisis. The governor issued a state of emergency after a devastating red tide washed up on shore, killing marine life, stalling local economies, and making people sick.
This beach that you're on, normally this day there would be a couple of hundred people on here. There's like me. I own the beach right now for the last couple of days. It's not good though.
Meanwhile, inland Florida is drowning in toxic blue-green algae, creating dead zones in the water and sending people to the hospital.
Everybody should care because this is about water, and water is our greatest resource. You can't drink money.
Many residents are left wondering why lawmakers haven't done more to protect Florida's waterways and who they'll be voting in next to fix this issue.
People are very upset that their government is subjecting them to toxic algae as a policy decision.
This is a sentiment that many Floridians share, that the government has sided with polluters and let them dump chemicals in the water for decades. Red tide in Florida is a naturally occurring event, but this year's bloom was particularly bad. Scientists believe that an uptick in human activity and agricultural pollution can inflame the blooms once contaminated water is released into the ocean. The brownish-red algal blooms cause almost immediate respiratory effects, bloodshot eyes, coughing, and congestion. For most people, this is inconvenient, but for people with health issues like Kaya Barrett, it can be much worse. Kaya's parents, Ambry and Brad Barrett, are worried the red tide blooms are affecting her. She has cystic fibrosis, a respiratory condition that can be severely inflamed by airborne irritants.
I took her to school first thing in the morning, and as we were heading outside, it felt like the air slapped us in the face, and it smelled so bad. It was just dead fish. The second she went out there, she immediately started coughing and choking and gagging. I just don't know what long-term damage it's doing to her. That worries me. It just scares me. We don't know. There's no answers. So what now? What now? And then what happens in a few months? If she gets something, or no one's going to be responsible for anything.
The corporations have the money to buy the politicians and the lobbyists to help create these laws or loopholes that they're using to release contaminated water that shouldn't be released.
The governor is largely responsible for managing Florida's water systems. And the next governor, either Democrat Andrew Gillum or Republican Ron DeSantis, will inherit the crisis.
But it's whichever one can clean up the mess out there definitely would have our support. Mm-hmm. That's a hard one because a lot of them will say they'll do something, and then you don't know until they're in if they will or won't.
Neither candidate has a perfect environmental record. DeSantis voted against clean water legislation in the past, and Gillum okayed a coal power plant as a city commissioner. Florida's current governor, Republican Rick Scott, is now running for Senate against Democrat Bill Nelson. Scott is being criticized heavily by his opponents and environmental groups for slashing environmental protections, cutting funding for clean water programs, and deregulating polluters. Scott is favored to win, but elections in Florida are often decided by just a few points. If Scott does win, Florida will have 2 Republican senators, both with very poor environmental records.
What we're dealing with is an ecological disaster that's being ignored, number one, and it's swiftly and quickly turning into an economical collapse. We're 100% reliant on tourism, real estate, those kind of major industries there that fuel our economy.
All these people in these motels, the restaurants, it's no work. And this is going on for a month on end. How would anybody make it with no money coming in for at least a month?
Why are they mismanaging our waters, and why are they not taking care of us as communities? Because they're in bed with special interests, such as U.S. sugar.
The influence of the sugar industry is not on just one party, it's both the Democrats and the Republicans. So, when it comes to their interests, it's not necessarily a partisan issue. It's really those who are standing up for the environment and those who are standing up for the industry. And that doesn't have a political affiliation in Florida. Floridians are fed up, and we are definitely seeing that playing out in all political races across the state. People want to vote water.